So here we go. We're going to do an hour of rapid chess. It's just a tournament that I see happening right now. Fairly low rated, which is nice. It's going to be more relatable. Alrighty. DD show. Good luck. Try e4. We're going to mix it up today. But, 1300 rapid. That's probably around a little bit above average. I'm just going to play normal e4, e5 stuff. Wow. Definitely don't usually see this response. The usual theoretical move here is you just take the pawn. Ah, we have a Stafford gambit. Well, we might as well investigate. I'm going to trade. I don't like this error message from chess.com. Your move, you will auto-resign in 10 seconds. Let me think. Let me think, please. I'm going to try something different. Pawn to d4. I don't think it's a good move, but maybe we'll throw our opponent off. Oh. Definitely looks like it worked. Gonna just go f3 here and defend that pawn on e4. It's a little loose. Yeah, there's some sort of setting on chess.com that is auto-resigning players for taking their time. It's a bit strange. But yeah, h5 is not the move. I'm just up a pawn here, and my mission is to get my king castled, trade off some material. So let's just take on c6. Even trade. Have a nice healthy center. Go knight c3. I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, it'd be nice to maybe develop this bishop to e3, maybe to g5. Because I'm not sure where my light squared bishop should go. But d5, it's a bit combative. I could take on d5 right now with the pawn. Then I undouble my opponent's c-pawns, which doesn't seem really ideal since those are a little weak. I think I'm going to play pawn to e5 and just attack that knight. Right now, nothing is loose. The pawn is defended by my knight and my pawn on f3. But I feel like I can cramp my opponent if I play e5. They got to react to their knight being under pressure. Let's go e5. I think that knight, it has 3 squares. This one looks a bit silly on h7. g8. You lose some time, but at least maybe you can find a future if it reroutes. Knight d7 is, I think, what most players would play here. Problem is, it does block the light squared bishop on c8. Either way, I'm pretty happy with it. Whoa. Knight G4. Well, I can't say I expected that move. And if you're wondering, Eric, why is that a bad move? I encourage you to take a few seconds and just look at the position. Because my pawn on f3 can just capture that knight, and that's a pretty good trade. I don't see anything tricky here. So I'm going to take. Thank you for the knight. And now if we count the material, it says here I'm +3. I'm up a knight here. Well, time to get castled, right? There is a check on h4. But I can always block that with my pawn. Just to be safe, I'm going to develop this bishop because I think I might queenside castle. If I kingside castle, make that a goal, then I am a little worried about black's rook putting some pressure on. Yeah. Go bishop to f4. Might not be the best move, but I'm developing. I'm reinforcing this pawn, reinforcing the center, and it's a safe square. I guess we should start with that. I don't see any of black's pieces in a position to attack it. G5. Well, I was a little bit wrong because the pawn is attacking the bishop now. But I'm not worried. Let's just tuck the bishop in on G3. In my next move, I'm probably going to move my queen up a square just to D2. And then we can castle queenside. Just like that. Okay. F6, but my pawn looks good there. It's defended. So let's continue. Develop your pieces. Get your king safe. And then we can have some fun. Then the rooks can join. This bishop is probably going here. Only got 2 safe squares after all. E2 and D3. Although if you're thinking about playing some silly moves like, you know, C4 or B5 or A6, maybe I'm doing my job. Maybe it means you're getting sleepier, which is fine. All right. F takes C5. I can take with the pawn or take with the bishop. I think I'm going to take with the bishop because not only is that bishop defended on E5, but when I do take on E5, I'm attacking that rook on H8, which buys me a little bit of time. Black's going to have to react to that, and then I can proceed with queenside castling. And while this is happening, take a look at that king on E8. Take a look at this king. Visualize. We want to castle queenside as white, and that black king on E8 doesn't have any pawns around it for cover. So I see some good opportunities to attack that king once my king gets castled. Rook H7, okay. I said I was going to queenside castle. I'll tell you that I am very tempted to throw this move in first. Bishop to D3, just to gain another move by attacking that rook. When I say gain another move, right, it's just I get to do something I want, which is develop that bishop. I want to do that eventually. And black has to react to it, so I kind of gain time when I do so, because it prevents black from developing their pieces if they keep having to move this rook, which is being attacked. I'm tempted to do it, but I'm going to just be, a safety first kind of guy for this first game. Just queenside castle. But in my head, I'm thinking about this king as a target. It's really natural for me to move my rook to e1. And then I have some ideas. Rook e1. I can hit the king the very next move. So let's start with that. Black wants to get the king somewhere safe, but there's no pawns to block. You're probably looking at using pieces, or if you're feeling very frisky, you can consider just running with your king to the queenside manually. But you might not be in time, because then I can put my bishop on a6 and probably cut off the escape. Okay, bishop e6, trying to block the file. Now, that does temporarily deal with it. But by moving when black moves the bishop back, it's my turn. Just going to grab that diagonal, hit the rook. Not a bad thing to introduce some threats. People blunder. You just have to give them the opportunity. I'm just looking at my king. My king looks safe. My queen looks safe. I just want to bring my rooks into the game. This rook's already active. Maybe this rook on h1 can just slide on over to f1 and grab that open file. Looking very juicy. Instead of focusing on the king, I often think, let's put my pieces in the best place possible, and then when I do decide to attack, I'm going to have a better chance of that being successful. We're just going to start with rook hf1. Maybe I can attack that bishop on f8 in the future. I'm putting a bit of pressure on. I'm going to need some more, probably doubling up on the f-file. But putting a rook on an open file like that, hard to go wrong. Okay, that's a good move. Black still has to solve what to do with the king. But in the meantime, moving those bishops, I think it's decent. But in this position, I have my rooks developed, my king is castled, and black is using pieces to shield the king. You take a look at this position right here, and you take a bit of a deep dive. There is something I can play that really is going to blast open the position and cause big problems for black. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. See if you can spot it, but I'll tell you it involves multiple pieces. It activates multiple pieces. Saw bishop g7. Well done. The rook on h6 is being attacked. By moving the bishop to g7, all of a sudden my rook on e1 is putting pressure on the bishop on e6. So black has to deal with a hanging rook. But then that rook still needs to defend the bishop on e6. But every single square for that rook are covered by my bishops. It's going to be tough. I don't see any way here for black to defend and avoid significant material loss. My bishops are active, my rooks are active, and black is just being really delayed, developing, finding safety for that king. I don't see a move. I just don't see any move. I mean, you can bail out and take on h2, get a pawn, but I am going to be picking up a bishop. And the material is just adding up. Black's king is still not safe. If I go a bit further, I mean, rook to f6. Well, I can take that rook with my rook on f1 or my bishop on g7, and a bishop is generally worth less than a rook, so that makes it simple. I take this rook with the bishop. That still removes the rook from the board, and now this bishop is hanging. I'm just going to slide in and take that bishop on e6 with check. I now have two attackers on the bishop on f6. Moves back. Okay, let's continue the pressure. Queen takes g5 is tempting here because the bishop is pinned. But I think I'm just going to double my rooks on the e-file. And now, next move, I can take this bishop. Black's queen is defending, yes. But if we count up everything, I'm going to be winning a bishop and a queen for the price of two rooks. And that's a good trade. It's a good trade for me. A rook is worth approximately 5. The bishop is worth approximately 3. The queen is worth approximately 9. So that's 12 points for 10. That's a good deal. And I'm already up material. And when you're up material, you should be looking to trade into an endgame, because it means your opponent's going to run out of material before you do, and they're just going to be left with a king. I have other tempting moves too, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. Yes, there was a check I could have thrown in, but when you have a big advantage, there's many situations where there's more than one good move and you just have to pick one and commit to it. And I'm just going to commit to this. Rook takes e7, check. All right, there's a forced checkmate here. Go knight b5 check. Pawn has to take. Then I'm going to go queen b4 check. King's got to go there. And then hopefully you can guess the next two moves. Checkmate in 2. My first move, I'm going to play queen takes b5. It's defended by my bishop on d3. That's a check. King only has one move. And then it's time for checkmate. I'm just going to bring this rook down. Good game. Good game. On to the next. Black just Had a couple opening mistakes. Uh-oh. A 1700. This is higher rated than what I was hoping for. All right, let's try d4. Let's try different openings. We might have a Queen's Gambit coming. I'm playing c4. If you're wondering why is it called the Queen's Gambit, you might know the TV show. Well, there you go. I just gambited a pawn on the queen side of the board. And actually my opponent took it. So let's try to win the pawn back. I'm going to go right here. Pawn to e3, developing the bishop on f1. What's called the Queen's Gambit accepted old variation. Wow, I feel like I'm being targeted now that I'm in my 30s. I'm going to take the pawn back. We're back to even material, and at least my bishop has developed. But in some situations, you don't win that pawn back, and that's what a true gambit is. All right, let's just complete development. Our bishop is out. I think I'm going to be castling kingside here. I have all the pawns around my king. My king's bishop is already developed. Let's just bring the knight in. Knight to f3. Usually you want to develop your pieces towards the middle, towards the center. Covers more ground. And in this case, in case there's ever extra pressure on my d4 pawn, the knight's an additional defender. Bishop to b4, check. Alrighty. How do I want to block? I don't want to move my king. I don't want to move my king because then I can't castle. But I'm not too worried about this check. How about I just develop this knight and block it? The knight was probably going to go there anyways. And okay. Probably a good moment to castle. I don't see any threats. I'm looking around. Everything's defended, including this knight, right? Pawns capture diagonally, which means they defend diagonally. So let's just castle here. My opponent's playing pretty fast. I'm going to try something here that hopefully confuses them a bit. I'm actually going to, first of all, I'm tempted to play a3 and just encourage a capture. Then I win the bishop pair, and I do like the bishop pair. But before I do that, I think I'm going to go bishop to b5. I just like the idea of potentially messing up black's pawns. Pinning the knight, first of all. The knight can't move because of the king on e8. But I like the idea of, in some positions, I might take it and mess up those pawns. So I could take right now, but I'm going to play queen to a4. And my idea there is simple. Now when I take the knight, yes, black's pawns get weakened, but by removing the knight, my queen is actually then attacking the bishop. So I'm trying to remove the defender and encourage this. I'd rather play queen a4 and encourage them to give up their bishop than a3. Because my threats aren't over yet. Black got rid of their bishop that was loose, but my queen and bishop were also attacking the knight on c6. Okay, so now I have the bishop pair, and I tell you, I like the bishop pair. I like the bishops, and I'm going to show you why. They like diagonals, open lines. But I like the bishop pair. And this is one bishop, that's the other bishop. One bishop hasn't developed. Well, I can't really get on this diagonal very easily unless I manage to push this pawn. If I can't get on that diagonal, I'm looking at this diagonal or that diagonal. And I like how bishop a3 looks. I have some pressure here on the knight because the knight moves out of the way. Oops, you've dropped a rook. But even if the knight and the rook do manage to coordinate, a bishop is controlling quite a bit of real estate without being at risk. Bishops are long-ranged pieces. It's fairly safe here, and it's covering a lot of ground. Okay, a6, that is attacking my bishop, and I'm not one to give my bishop away for free. I can't go here because of this bishop. If I drop back one square, I'm a little worried about pawn to b5 forking my bishop and queen. I'm just going to drop my bishop all the way back to e2, somewhere safe. Black is dealing with that pin. Now the rook's no longer hanging if the knight moves. My turn to improve the position. You know, I can't play e4. I'd love to do it. I'm looking for pawn moves that are good, and that leads me to pawn to c4. I'm taking away a square from black's pieces, so I'm gaining some space. And it looks pretty safe to me. Knight e4. Uh-oh. Maybe knight c3 forking my queen and bishop. So I'm going to deal with that. I'm going to deal with it by moving this rook to c1 to cover that square. And I picked that rook because the rook on f1 I envision in the future maybe going to d1. I want to space those rooks out so they're not, you know, competing for the same square. Okay, c6. Black's playing pretty passively, but solid. Let's just develop my rook now. Rook to d1. I mean, chess is a long game. If your opponents are playing well, you don't force it. You just continue improving your pieces, trying to grab space where you can, being mindful of their threats. So now I need to move. Can't push these pawns that easily. Or can I? Bishops do well in open positions, but you still have to calculate. You know, I'm a little tempted to move my knight with the goal. If I move my knight somewhere, I can start playing f3 and e4 with my pawns and pushing the pieces back. But I'm going to try something else. I'm going to go knight to d2. I'm offering a trade because I consider my knight on f3 a normal piece, but the knight on e4 is probably my opponent's best piece right now. So it's a trade that I'm willing to make. If I'm trading one of their good pieces for one of my normal pieces, that's okay. Plus, it clears the board a little bit, right? More trades, there's more space for the remaining pieces, and I have long-range pieces, the bishops. Now that knight is out of the way at least. I'd love to go e4, but I still don't see it being possible. I'm going to try a provocative move here. I'm going to go pawn to d5. You can figure out why. I'm setting a bit of a trap. Pawn takes pawn. E takes my pawn. I take back with the c pawn. And the knight captures. Then I can give up my rook for the knight, because this pawn is going to be pinned. That didn't happen. But now there's an issue with this move. There's an issue here. My d-pawn is now passed. There's a queen on c7, a knight on e7. I'm just going to go pawn to d6. Trying to fork the queen and knight. Now that's a good response. If I take the knight, all of a sudden the queen moves down and takes the rook. And I don't think I'm good winning a knight and giving up a rook. But I can actually just simply take this pawn on c5 and be up a pawn. The knight's moved out of the way. There's a saying in chess, passed pawns must be pushed. If you don't push them, it gives your opponent an opportunity to block the pawn, such as queen d7. Doesn't mean you should always push, but you should absolutely look at the possibility. And I'm looking at the possibility here, and I like what I'm seeing. The pawn is defended by the rook, and it opens up my dark square bishop for all the remaining squares. The rook on e8 doesn't have a move. There's no safe squares. If it goes to e7, if it goes to f8, I'm going to be taking that. If you don't move the rook, I'll happily take it with the pawn. Well, moving the king out of the way is good energy, I'll give you that. So let's calculate. What trap is there if I take the rook and make a queen and the queen recaptures? Well, I will just be up a full rook and be very happy. If I take the rook with the pawn, the king being on h7 means it's no longer check. So black has the opportunity to take my rook on d2, hitting my rook on c1. But I do have a queen on e8. This pawn is turned into a queen. What if my queen takes their rook on a8? And then black's queen takes my rook on c1, check. Is that back rank checkmate? I don't think so. I can defend with a bishop, but most importantly, I can actually bring my queen back and block on d1. So we're going to go for that variation. Made a queen on a8. I'm going to take this rook on a8. And then when you take my rook on c1, I'm going to block with the queen. Queen is better because that's an aggressive way to block, knowing black's not going to trade queens because they're down a full queen here. It was a good try by my opponent. Sometimes that would work. Sometimes the back rank would lead to checkmate, but we were ready this time. Now it's time to try to win the game. First step, trade pieces. I'm up a queen. Trades are going to be very, very good. And this forces a trade because the bishop is pinned against the king. We've got a minute left, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. In my mind, I just want to trade the queens off. If I trade the queens off, let's give a check. Uh-oh. The back rank might be a little vulnerable. Maybe, maybe not. But let's just be safe. How do we want to defend? Let's go h3. just to give that king an escape square on h2. And whenever there's an opportunity to trade queens, I'm going to do it. So here, after the check, I'm going to offer a queen trade. Go bishop d4. If the queen was out of the way, we have checkmate. I don't mind if black takes because I'm up a full queen. Those are all good trades for me. Let's capture. Don't forget about that queen in the corner. Let's offer a queen trade. I'm just going to push this pawn. If the queen attacks it, then I get to win f7. Push the pawn. And now this queen's going to join. This queen's doing a good job defending everything. And now we just play queen d7, offering a queen trade. It's defended. And black has to take. If you don't take, it's going to take on f7, check. And it's checkmate, next move. Good game. Strong opponent. I could ladder mate or go queen h7. Let's keep it going. Hope you're getting sleepy. Alrighty. 1545 from, is that the Czech Republic? Yes. Good luck. Now we have black. We'll just play e4, e5. Play the normal Roy Lopez. Defend that center pawn. This is what we call the Scotch usually. And you take here. It's white's putting pressure on the pawn. Knight g5. Is this theory? It's a little concerning. I'm not used to seeing this move, gotta be honest. I didn't see the immediate threat. Yes, now there's some pressure here. Now there's a bit of pressure on f7. That's a little scary. And chess.com keeps telling me, your move, you will auto-resign in 14 seconds. I'm being attacked here. Give me some time. This is scary. I gotta find a move. Okay, I made my move. Knight e5. I don't like that time pressure. And now let's go h6. Attack this knight. They're really rushing me in the opening. I played knight e5, attacking the bishop and defending f7. They're this auto resign message is really scaring me. I'm just a guy trying to help people fall asleep here. My knight is being attacked. If I move the knight out of the way, then they can take on f7 with check. And we don't want that. So I'm actually going to just defend my knight. Maybe. Maybe d6. Just defend the knight, because the knight does defend that critical pawn on f7. Holy smokes. I'm being viciously attacked here. f4. At some point I have to take that knight. I'm going to have to take that knight on g5. I think it might be now. Because if I move that knight out of the way, I'm once again really worried about that. I could harass the queen with a move like c5. It's true. But this is very sharp. This isn't relaxing. I have an idea. I'm going to take the knight. And after white takes my knight, instead of taking back, I don't like giving my opponent the check here. Feel like that's a little loose. I'm going to go knight g4. Knight g4 attacks this. Allows my queen to defend my g5 pawn. And it attacks h2. Hopefully that confuses this aggressive check opponent too. So pawn takes pawn, then I can take back with a queen. Holy smokes. Bishop takes f7 check. Well, I didn't see that coming, but I trust myself. I'm going to take it. But this isn't very nice. I was just trying to develop. I was just trying to castle. This is what I have to deal with. I wouldn't be surprised if white castles and checks me all at once. I'm a little scared. I'm only human. But after white... Whoa, okay. Queen d5, okay. Now if I go bishop e6, you can still check me. So how about I go here? King g6. I don't see any checks now. The only checks are the kind of checks you don't want to play. You know, queen f7 hangs the queen. Queen e6 hangs the queen. I know it looks like my king is in the open, which it's true. But a better way to look at it is to try to see the pieces surrounding the king and if my opponent actually has ways to attack. After castling, now all of a sudden, yeah, f7 is a square that the queen can go to. I'm just going to take politely on e5. Now the knight defends the f7 square. And I'm ready to kick that pesky queen out with pawn c6 next. There aren't many pieces surrounding my king from white's perspective. They just have a rook and a queen. And I have a knight defending, my bishop's doing something, my queen's doing something. So we're just counting the numbers. I have quite a few defenders here. There's a price to pay when you sacrifice. You sacrifice a piece, that's one less attacker you might have. And now, at the first opportunity, I would like to evict that queen with pawn to c6. The kind of move I'd love to see is queen d4. Why queen d4? Because then I'll go queen b6 and force the queens off. And once the queens are off, my king on g6 is going to be much more relaxed. But if not, I can go bishop e7, reinforce the g5 pawn. This knight doesn't have an easy way to support the attack. I'm feeling good here. Get my pieces out. I will time this check at some moment. I like this check because at the end of the day, I have the h-file as well. I can use that rook. You have to trust yourself. If you don't see any ghosts, then continue playing the right moves. I don't see a way to get mated. I'm going to complete development now. Just make sure everything's defended. I'd love to trade off the queens though. There's not that many moves for white. Kind of thinking here. Queen retreats to b3. We have the same issue. I can trade queens with queen b6. Check. The queen has d2 and d1. Those are the only squares that prevent me from executing a queen trade. And I think my next move is probably going to be bishop e7, then bishop e6, and I've constructed, I think, pretty good defense around the king. When it's your opponent's move, it's a great time for you to spend that, trying to figure out what they might play or what you want to play. Queen d4. I'm just going to play queen to b6 now. My queen is defended and it forces the queens off. And once the queens are off, as I said, you're going to see it's going to be very hard for white to generate anything against my king. Okay, that's a queen trade. I'm just going to recapture. I'm just up a piece now. Bishop e3 hits this pawn. That's not very nice. So let's just move that pawn up somewhere safe. It's guarded. Even though I'm up a piece, I still have to pay attention, you know. Lose a couple pawns, that advantage could disappear. So being greedy is not a bad trade in chess for the most part. White's looking for a breakthrough, but with this knight on e5, it's such a strong piece. I have so many squares that I can go to or that I'm defending. The bishop on e6, sorry, the bishop on c8 defends the square on f5, so the rook can't come in. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, it's time to develop. Bishop e7. At least by moving this bishop, I don't have to worry about my rook on h8 having to guard it. Couple moves I'm thinking about here. Maybe pawn to b4, just harassing this knight. Knight to c4 is very tempting. Forking, you know, the bishop on e3 and the pawn on b2. Another move for those that want to attack is pawn to g4. You know, they say doubled pawns aren't the best. Well, these are double isolated pawns. So if you have an opportunity to trade one of them off, that might be, that's usually a net positive. So let's even play pawn to g4 and open up the h file and maybe go after white's king. But knight c4 is probably the easiest move here. Or just continuing development. But I have a few ideas. White attacked at the start of the game. I think it's time to give them a taste of their own medicine. If I can open up the h file, if I can get my knight on g4, I can boot this bishop off of the g1 to a7 diagonal. And I'm going to go for my own kind of checkmate. Okay. Knight e2, I think my opponent wants to go to f4. I'm a little worried about that. I just have to calculate. The more I look, the more I'm not concerned, because after you go there, my king can actually just hide. Now this is a tricky move. By recapturing, what my opponent wants is for me to take with a rook so that I walk into this knight f4 fork, because that's a check. Good try, good try. I'm going to tease you and move my rook to h4. I'm not going to take. I'm going to give my king a bit of an escape square, and then I will take your pawn. I'm just preparing to meet knight f4 check with the king shuffle all the way to h7. That's a check. We expected that. And the king is safe on h7. I don't see any follow-up checks. I think I do want to take this pawn now with the bishop. Am I missing something? Can take our time. Bishop takes pawn on h3. If the knight captures, then I can recapture with my rook, and I've just won a pawn. They don't recapture. If they don't take on h3, then all of a sudden when I take... This rook is a bit loose, being attacked. And I need to develop this bishop anyways, because my rook on a8 wants to join the game. I need to use that rook. I need it to be participating. It seems like that's a beneficial move. Just going to recapture. Now we're up a knight and a pawn. But my rook is being attacked. Okie dokie, let's take a look here. The rook on e1 defends the bishop on e3. This is a safe square on h4. My bishop defends it and it's not being attacked. h5 is a safe square, but h6 is not because the bishop attacks it. Let's go to h5, the safe square. And remember, when you're up material, trades are good. So I don't mind a move like this at all. I'm just going to take. My king goes somewhere safe like g8. And I'm going to keep accepting trades if they're offered or initiating them myself. This rook's going to join the game. We've been waiting for it. Just gave my opponent a minute on the clock. Felt a bit bad. Oh, resignation. Good game. Good game. Well, There we go. We just had 3 rapid games. Almost an hour. If you're still awake, I haven't done my job, but hopefully you've learned a thing or two. Feel free to leave some comments below about the format. Let me know. But I'd love to do some more relaxing rapid in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody.